he approached us with the topic of discovery. And at first I was kind of worried because discovery is a really big topic. I'm a teacher working abroad. I'm constantly learning from my job, always meeting new people. I am always discovering. So what was I going to talk about? I was getting ready for my holiday and I decided, I don't know, maybe I should be thinking about this topic. Maybe I should be thinking about this topic from the perspective of a teacher. Maybe I should be thinking of it from the perspective of a musician. But the big problem here was that I was always torn. No person is just one thing. None of you are just one thing. I was out in Busan on the second night of my trip and I got lost. I went down the beach, I went through an alley and I found a rooftop cafe. I thought that the road was going to bring me back home, but it kind of didn't. But eventually I came across this stage. They had set this up for the Winter Olympics. Musicians were out performing. I was spending all this time with a bunch of Korean strangers, and I kind of had this quote come to me. I thought, aha, I know what I can talk about at the TED Talk. Some guy once said, all the world's a stage. And then some guy who was there with him wrote it down, and then he died. That's exactly how it all played out, I promise. So you're probably thinking, Mr. Sartor, why are we talking about a stage today? Well, I'm up here on a stage today, acting as a philosopher, somebody with something important to teach you about. But on a regular basis, I am a teacher. My stage is my classroom, my stage is the hallways, my stage is my office. And on that stage, I play the role of a teacher. But sometimes I also find myself playing the role of a musician. My stage is a bar, my stage is a sidewalk, my stage can be anywhere I feel like performing. But I didn't come here to talk about myself. Our world is a big stage, and it asks us to play all kinds of roles. And there are millions of them. So I'm not going to talk about all of them tonight. But I want to talk to you about the big three. And seeing as I'm Mr. Digital Media, I figured I would talk about this from the performance side of things. The stage side of things. So, the first group I want to talk about were the stagehands, or the crew. Now these are the group of people who have the most straightforward and simple of jobs. Not a bad thing. Their role is specific because their job must be specific. Think about a cashier. Their job is to receive your money, give you your service, give you a smile, say goodbye, and they have done their job. And you need jobs like this. It's also really nice to be in a job like this because you don't only have to be creative. You do your job, you're good, you can go home, have energy for other things. So it's kind of nice to be in this position. The second role I want to talk about are the actors. The actors also play an important job, but they're a little bit different from the stage crew because they are putting on a performance. They are putting in a little bit of themselves. Teachers are actors in their own way. We come to class every day. Our job is to give you a bunch of information, but we got to make it interesting. Otherwise, we would just tell you to read a book and get out of here. So our job as actors is to show ourselves in our work. And that's really interesting because we can be creative, we can add, we can give you something more. It's a little bit more work, but it's also very rewarding. The last group I want to talk about are the directors, or the producers. These are the bigwigs, the ones who have very big responsibilities. But they are also the group who has the highest level of control and creativity. They put the most out there. They create the jobs, they give the roles. They are in charge of the stage, basically. A good director is good because they are so good at giving everybody else their roles and responsibilities and taking care of everything else. So, why? Why am I talking about all this? Well, the first thing I wanted to say is that none of these roles is better than the other. You need all of them. One teacher cannot run a school, maybe. One cashier cannot run a business. You need all of them. And I've been talking about this analogy in a world sense, but we can also make this a little bit smaller and talk about ourselves. That's my brother there. Brother. The other thing I wanted to talk about here was that each role that we take as individuals is important to us. My role as a teacher is important to who I am. My role as a musician, my role as a friend, my role as a son, my role as a brother. All of these roles are important to who I am as a person because they give me a variety of skills. They give me a variety of interests. They make it easy for me to relate to other people. If I was just one thing, it would be very hard for me to understand somebody else because they are one very different thing from me. But you might be asking, how much should a person invest themselves in a role? How much time, how much energy should they put into what they do? Well, it depends on the person. Some people like to give a very little bit to everything that they do. I put a little bit of energy into being a son today by saying good morning to my mom. Put a little bit of energy into being a musician by practicing before coming out to the TED Talk. And I still have energy to do everything else. Nothing wrong with that. There are also people who put their entire selves into what they do, into that role. And that's okay too, because maybe that job or that role gives them everything that they could need. These people are the kind of people that we would say are doing what they love. And people are very lucky when they find something that they love. It usually feels like it's easy, it's fun, I just do it. But there also comes the problem of dependence. Now, this is something that I can very personally relate to because sometimes I put a lot of Mr. Sartor into what I do. Sometimes I put a lot into what I give to my friends, or a lot into what I give to my students, or a lot to what I do for work. And sometimes it doesn't give back. What I was going to say is that our roles usually will give us meaning. They will give us something to do, something to believe in, something to reach for. But we need to be careful. Sometimes the roles in our stage that we are on can become much bigger than we could have imagined. And when that happens, if we're not careful, our roles can kind of take over. They can consume us. And this is where I come to the big question. Who am I? If I am a teacher and suddenly I don't have a job anymore, am I still Mr. Sartor? If I have somebody break my guitar in half, am I still a musician? Am I still Mr. Sartor? What happens when you lose that role, when it's taken away from you, or when things change? And this is where the big conversation I'm having with you comes back around to the theme of discovery. Today I am actually talking to you about self-discovery. It's important to be trying new things, to be trying new roles, to being a teacher today, a musician tomorrow, a guidance counselor on Thursday. Because it teaches you skills that you never knew you had. It gives you opportunities to learn new things from the people you interact with. Moving out to China has been a huge new role for me. And one thing that you need to realize is that you've been doing this your whole life. Maybe you haven't been thinking about it, but you should. Sometimes it's very easy to get lost in a role, to try something new. But do we always stop and kind of reflect on what's happened? Think about it? Did we learn from what we tried? We're always growing. There's no stopping that. Too bad. You're gonna get old. It's okay. Get used to it. But are we always growing? Are we always maturing? Are we always learning from these things? I want you to understand that it's important that we are always celebrating our successes, but also learning from our failures. It's good to make mistakes. It's good to keep trying. Just like we were talking about earlier with risks. Risks are okay. Be smart about it, but risks are okay. And it's important to know that the tools to growing, the tools to becoming a better you, are being curious, are being ambitious, and being good at reflecting. Being good at reflecting on who you are, what you've done, where you've gone, and where you want to go. Again, I moved to China and I gave up a lot. And coming to China was not fun when I first got here. It wasn't easy. I left behind my friends and my family. I left behind a lot of my identity. I had that problem where I left my bag behind and my music, and I was like, who am I? I left a relationship behind. Who am I? But it's important that we keep moving, that we keep trying, that we keep putting ourselves out there, because otherwise, we're stuck. We're stuck not knowing what could have been, what we could have been, what we could have become. And I'm glad to have had this opportunity. So, as I was writing all of this very dramatic stuff on my vacation, a boat took me to Japan. A bunch of trains took me around to different cities where I met new people. I had new friendships. They told me stories about their lives, about their circumstances. I also got to meet my old friends. And we got to visit some places we saw last year. We got to share some old stories. But we also made new ones. We also got a lot of new experiences out of our trip. I came back to China to do what I was doing before I left. But something was different. I had learned something new. I had experienced something new. I had changed. So, at the end of today's speech, I want to reiterate. Some guy once said that all the world's a stage. And then some guy wrote that down, and then he died. And one day, we'll die too. But along the way, what roles are we going to play? What chances are we going to take? What risks will lead us to growing, learning, and becoming something much bigger than we ever would have expected? So, as you leave today, I want you to think, who are you, and who do you want to become?